Signs of unnatural fury had arisen amongst the beasts of the old forest. Seeking to aid the beleaguered bounders, I sought out Marigold Boffin, a hobbit from Buckland. Armed with a greater understanding of the treacherous woods, she had spied strange, tree-like creatures within them. Importantly, she noticed their repellent nature to the surrounding animals, highlighting their fury instead as fear. Following her deep into the old forest, we encountered more frightened animals, significantly ghosts, and finally, the tree creatures. Dropping no eaves, we overheard their sinister designs. They spoke of a gaunt lord whom they served, and a sword which drew to its shades, of which we had already encountered. Ominously, were their plans to succeed, supposedly the forest would then be theirs. After the strongest of their number had left, the three of us, Marigold, Humphrey and I, slew the remaining two before travelling on to Tom Bombadil's house. Here, we learnt that he had seen both a tall fellow and a cruel sword near Old Man Willow. He illuminated the identity of the tree men, tree trolls, and shared our views towards them. Needling out our intentions, he warned us of the dangers in seeking to break this sword. Old Man Willow's song had grown far more dark and dangerous of late, and he suggested we not assail the sword alone. But aside from Marigold, I knew no other, willing or brave enough to strike so deep into the old forest. The three of us would have to be enough. The situation would be challenging, but as such situations do, it forced me to grow stronger, more decisive. In anticipation of the difficulties ahead, I reconstructed my purpose and duty. From then, I would leave whichever brave warriors with the gall to stand beside me from the epicenter of danger, willing all blades to strike me, while providing my allies the best opportunities to deal devastating blows in return. With my intentions prepared, we marched on to Old Man Willow.
In the heart of the old forest, a fell sword calls forth evil spirits from the Barrow Downs. Only by destroying the sword can you stop the wood troll's blight from spreading and end the forest's misery.
Previous worries over fighting large numbers of tree trolls now had to be stamped into the mud. It was clear there would be no way around the impassive monsters. We had to be confident. I walked right into their rooted arms, showing that doubt was a word unfamiliar to me. I knew that Marigold and Humphrey would follow. It was immediately clear they had a purpose here. They named us intruders and prioritized keeping us from what they described as the fell spirits. Marigold and I had the same thought. Whatever they felt was worth protecting, for us, was worth destroying. Here, so deep into their territory, the trolls commanded influence over the roots of the forest. As the trunks and crowns of the trees remained only as witnesses, it felt as if they were resisting as much as they could. A good omen. Not all here was yet turned to evil. But how long could the timeless forest, deep in the certainty of its own existence, hold out against such a malign communion? Ahead we discovered a grotesque joining. Shade and troll, each far beneath the conscious world, in a foul, trance-like state. What evil energies coursed through them, I dared not suffer. Our earlier fights against these spirits had been so panicked that I still did not wholly understand their onslaught. When I felt the hope and trust in my companions failing, I realized the wretchedness of their magic. From beyond the grave, they channeled all the dread and despair that held them here and loosed it onto me. Knowing its unnatural source was the key to defeating it. That and making sure the trolls stood between us. The old forest was oppressive, but what we felt here was suffocating. A heavy, damp blanket of gloom stifled all airflow and freedom of thought. After the first spirit had faded, a brief moment of clarity revealed the true danger of them. They were empowering the nearby trolls, and who knew what else? Well fought. Onward to find more of the pale shades. But first more trolls. Oh, behold! Oh, what strength. It's all right, Humphrey. I'm back. The trolls were not beyond brute measures, hurling boulders of stone and the like, but I withstood it all. All the barrow iron I had mined across the Breland was now proving its worth. My armor was standing up to the most heinous of attacks, and I felt as an armored fortress, wading through hordes of the enemy, safe within my walls. I grew ever more thankful of it as we fought against increasing numbers. Their flailing arms and stomping thick-set legs were brutal, and my armor did much to dampen their blows. But more cunningly, when their rooted limbs scraped across my bare flesh, a burning sensation was left in their wake. Poison. It did much to sap my strength, blurring my vision and distracting my senses. Fighting through it, I was glad that the trolls had difficulty finding such exposed areas. While the trees for the most part resisted the pervading evil here, the younger greenery was being used effectively. Thick, matted sheets of ivy and vine had been grown to hide more trolls and spirits, continuing their strange accord. Let's see what secrets you are hiding. You'll be hard-pressed to surprise me. No! Ha-ha! And I'm back! We battled our way through another trio of these ritualists, and with the Shade's death, we once again felt a slight burden raised off our being. Marigold's keen eye had spotted a divergence in the earlier path that I had missed. Another wall of vegetation, but this one hid behind it a far more dangerous foe.
Pesky vermin! These woods are ours! You cannot stop the march of Angmar. Thardur will see it done.
Standing tall amidst a clearing atop a low promontory extending out into the gloomy Withywindle River was the larger tree troll previously witnessed. We had caught the creature's name, Gulmuk, and here it waited. The area was suffused with a mystical pink glow, and the site seemed ancient in origin. Sturdy standing stones proudly held their ground here for years uncounted, flanking the monstrosity. The strange light caught the blood-red leaves of the trees behind, their pale trunks mimicking the grey stones. Though they must have taken considerable exertion to erect by human hand, I realized the trolls would have had significantly less difficulty. They may indeed have had none of the history expected of them, but whatever their purpose was, no longer important. Gulmuk could not be hazarded to survive us. Easily double my height, I knew this fight would be a true challenge, one which I was eager to overcome. The fight was a drawn-out affair. Gulmuk's strikes hit twice as powerfully as the ordinary tree trolls, but she was also able to use her rooted limbs to far more effect. She would fall low into a crouch, only to unwind and release. Like a grindstone spun to a whir, sending her club-like arms out to batter all that stood near, launching me backward, out of breath and dazed. Between it all, she was also able to grow the length of her arm rapidly for a quick strike with far more force. I learned to distance myself from it, only for my back to suffer the full impact, sometimes from impossibly vast distances. When these outlandish techniques were not in use, I still did not receive any respite. She was truly a force of pure, unbridled fury, a blur of sweeping limbs tirelessly battering on my defense. A constant tangle of movement, I struggled to identify any pattern to her motions. Finally, she also threw more giant boulders, ripping them from the ground as if she were plucking daisies for a chain. No, a plague on it! This challenge, however, had found someone ready to conquer it. I learnt fast, distancing myself from her most devastating attacks, her sweeping limbs and striking blows, and using that distance to better avoid the boulders targeted at my head. As the thrill of battle enveloped me, her movements became slower to my eyes, her heavy stomping legs becoming little faster than the plodding strides of awakened trees. And my limbs seemed to act of their own volition, dodging her heaviest blows and constantly finding openings in her attacks. Most importantly of all, I held true to my intent. Only for brief moments was she able to focus her attentions on Humphrey and Marigold, but for the majority, I held her gaze. I seized her ire and held it fast, sustaining as much harm as needed for the three of us to conquer the wretched troll.
That'll teach him not to underestimate us. We've got further to go before we reach the sword and Old Man Willow.